Managers of Reddit. What made you fire an employee on their first day? Customer service desk at an insurance company. Basically just rerouting incoming calls to the relevant claims handler. 18-ish, yo lad comes from a temp agency. Seemed a bit dippy but should have been able to manage this easy job. After a couple of hours he'd secured his headset to his head by wrapping sellotape around his head and face several times. Weird but okay. Checked on him again 15 minutes later and he'd also sellotaped his telephone handset. Each workstation had both to his head in the same manner. Not only that but he'd sellotaped his whole head to his monitor and was just sitting there going, I don't quite know what to do about this while the call queue stacked up. I know no one can be quite that inept and it's most likely he was either trying to be funny or he just decided he didn't like the job and wanted out. But I prefer to think he was absolutely freaking mental. And imagine that he's now a stuntman or a rodeo clown or something. The guy signed a non-disclosure as we were working around movie sets and production offices. Throughout the day he continuously asked if he could take photographs. Finally, I realized that his employment was not worth risking my own employment or the production company's information. He was relocated elsewhere but he did not last long from what I hear. She just left. I couldn't find her anywhere. Called her later at her parents' home and fired her. Mom was pissed at me. I know my application said I can work anytime but really I can't work nights and weekends. She was hired for nights and weekends. So technically not their first day but this was the last day of their temp trial period and then the next day they were going to be made full-time. He was a forklift driver and we keep materials stacked high on very tall racks. Operators are told never ever to drive with the forklift raised up. You remain stationary. Lift up. Get the pallet. Bring it all the way down. Then drive. Driver decides to drive the forklift while raised. Clips the water sprinkler. Tears the piping from the ceiling. Causes the water system to go off and half our warehouse flooded. We make labels in our shop and paper and water don't go well together. He ended up destroying over $40K worth of finished product. That's product we already spent money and time making. He interviewed really well. Seemed excited to be a part of. Kept mentioning his mom, in a what a nice boy way. He even brought his mom in after we hired him. She seemed really nice too. It's not so weird when you consider how small town is. His first day? He showed up like a freaking space cadet. Seemed to barely understand English. Wasn't making eye contact with anyone but staring off into the distance like crazy. Asking if he could take an early lunch 45 minutes into his shift. Dude was high off his good and we politely told him it wasn't gonna work out 2 hours into the day. Guy lied about knowing how to drive forklift. Drove into support beam. To Europeans, there's no such thing as a forklift license in the US. When you go to a new job you have to redo the exam again. There's also no official exam so every place does it their own way. Girl snorted in disgust when I asked her to clear a table in her section. Wouldn't be shown how to set a table. And snapped at another manager. Do you even want to be here? I asked. Not really. Okay. Grab your stuff. Good luck to you. Hired a guy on the recommendation of another employee. He no call no showed the first day. Second day he no call no showed. But halfway through the day called to tell me that his kid was sick, which I'm sympathetic for because I have kids too. But I had to tell him we couldn't use him. Then waves of abusive texts and phone messages from him and his wife. His final text was super long and explained how I'd just made it an enemy for life and that he was going to get even by starting up a rival business and putting me out of business. If only he'd put that much energy into showing up. Dude got a job as the overnight shift in my gym. The overnight is here alone. He arrives at 9 and is here till 7 AM. At about 10:30 another employee comes in to work out and notices the please scan here sign is up. This is used when the overnight goes to the bathroom or has to step away from the front desk for whatever reason. The employee works out for an hour and notices the sign is still up. He walks into the break room. Bathroom act and can't find the new guy. Turns out he left an hour into his first shift. Manager had to come cover. He wouldn't have known till the next day if the employee wasn't working out there. Dude ignores all calls from the manager and doesn't even come get his check from his training days. Pub and amp. Bar manager here. This happened at my previous pub. New guy's first shift and he was constantly on his phone and going for cigarette breaks without permission. 2 hours into his shift his mates came in and he gave them all free drinks, shots and snacks. A few of them were under 18. Fired him on the spot and he had the audacity to appeal. Despite overwhelming evidence against him including 5 witness statements and CCTV. Not to mention the stock count deficit. Edit, just to clarify I'm from the UK. England. My boss hired a new lab technician. I am the manager so he had to report to me. At the end of the shift he tried to clean medical equipment with dish soap. Cause he didn't want to wait for the machine to finish. Which the other crew would be responsible for. He tried to microwave blood. In a microwave for food. And last but not least he forgot to put someone in the freezer. For 5 hours. He was such a mess. Showed up drunk. Showed up in sheer pants without underwear. Was a professional setting. It was a guy. Edited to indicate gender. Second edit, I realize this isn't appropriate for any gender. I just got a lot of responses that assumed the person was female. Happened to be a male. The dude who showed up in pants so tight you could see his entire PP and balls. It was a children's bounce play area fun zone. We told him to go home and change. He came back over an hour later. With Starbucks. In blindingly white skinny jeans. Same issue. Parents complained the first time. It is what happened on the first day but he didn't get fired until a bit later when we figured it out. Managed a MSP team hired a bright guy. All seems good on the first day. At the end of the first day he received a phone call where he announced his father has passed away. 2 weeks of compassionate leave for funeral out of state later. He was supposed to start work again but called from the car park to say he's too distraught. This goes on for 3 more weeks until one day we got a phone call from someone looking for this worker. It was his father. As it turned out he's been running this scam where he gets jobs with multiple companies and pulls this same stunt getting paid during the probationary period regardless of what happened for as long as he can. He set up salary payment to multiple accounts himself and to friends to avoid detection from tax agency. This guy was smooth. Lied and cried. Conned a lot of us. Not sure what happened to him but we reported this to the tax agency for a case of tax fraud. Long story short. As a manager for Space Shuttle Atlantis post-Columbia. Had a new hire that violated safety rules 3 times in his first morning. Then broke another rule after lunch about tool securing and dropped a wrench 150 feet onto Atlantis resulting in 3 million in time scans materials to recertify the impacted area for flight. Not a manager. But was training a new guy on a plastic bag cutting machine. The kind of bags used for products like fiberglass, peat moss, or salt. These machines sometimes have plastic buildup around the sealers and when this happens the machine needs to be stopped and cleaned. Usually this only takes a minute. Power off. Engage kill switch. Remove excess plastic. Change Teflon strip if necessary. Disengage kill switch. Then power back on. This was explained multiple times. Twice on the first night. He disengaged the kill switch and started the machine while I was working on it. Could have had my fingers crushed. Or had it clamp on the tools I was using and send shattered pieces everywhere. Lucky for me the machine starts to vibrate a second before it actually starts and I was able to pull away quickly enough both times. I stopped the machine. Grabbed my manager and my union rep. Explained what happened and he was gone in 5 minutes. Frick him. I had an employee call off on her first scheduled day. On her second scheduled day, she showed up 2 hours late. This was a sub shop. We weren't open yet, but we had been in doing prep, baking bread, and building our sub trays for catering orders. We told her that this wasn't going to work out and she got pissed. She started yelling that we were all racists assholes, and as she stormed out the door, she knocked over stacks of sub trays. We lost 15 trays to her tantrum. My boss went running out the door after her, and the girl's boyfriend got out of the car and reached behind his back swearing and telling my female boss that if she keeps stepping to them that he would stop her good. We are pretty sure that he had a gun. My boss checked the license plate and came back in. We had all of this girl's information, address, phone, social security, etc. from the paperwork, so with that and the security footage of her destroying the trays, we were able to press charges for the damage. I'm not the manager in the story, but I was there for part of it. Dude gets hired, starts training. During training, GM instructs him to take out the trash. He refuses. Gets into an argument. Apparently, he didn't know that he was arguing with the GM despite the big fancy name tag with general manager printed in block letters on it. Gets sent home. For some reason, he still comes in the next day, smelling of alcohol. He grabs food, this is a restaurant, without paying, right in front of everyone, including a manager. He then proceeds to start coming at a server because they couldn't tell him where the takeout silverware was, not the server's job. This evolves into a literal fight and the police get called. We never saw him again after that. This was all before his first actual day of work. We had an intern one semester. He was handed a large bundle of zip-tied cables and asked to cut them apart and separate them. He literally cut the entire bundle in half rather than cut the zip ties to separate them. Lost $2,000 worth of cables. Fired that day. Chief Officer of Merchant Vessel here. Technically, second in command of the ship after the captain. A seaman joined our ship while our vessel was berthed in Mobile, Alabama. He was carrying a plastic water bottle during familiarization rounds on deck with the third officer, and when it was empty proceeded to throw the bottle overboard. My Russian captain saw this, calmly asked me to call the seaman to his office, gave back all his documents, asked the agent to book him a flight back to where he came from. All of this happened in a span of 3 hours. I'm a bar and restaurant manager. One day the new kitchen porter walked through the front entrance carrying a huge bag of cheese over his shoulder, which the head chef had told him to pick up. He walked through the restaurant and, right in front of customers, launched it through the hatch in the kitchen, flying through the air as everyone just watched open-mouthed. The huge bag of cheese landed hard in the deep fat fryer. The chef working near it got scalded in hot oil and had to go to A&E. He's the only person I've sacked on their first day. I'm mostly pretty chill, but he was just a walking health and safety nightmare. Even after everything that happened, he still couldn't accept responsibility or apologize to the chef he hurt. He's the only person I've let go without a hint of remorse or sadness. The safety of your team always comes first. 2 stand out. He was laughing at the ice bin. Admitted he was tripping balls. We laughed. I said, you can't work like that. We laughed. He said, yeah, I know. So that was fun. She stuffed all the 5s from a fresh register, meaning I knew exactly how many 5s were supposed to be there, in her bra, assuming everyone who was totally watching wasn't paying attention. Nobody was gonna shake her down and the police were busy. She made $75 for roughly 30 minutes of training. He couldn't tie an apron on. He couldn't count change. Asked him to unpack boxes and found him sitting on the floor just staring at them. It wasn't so much firing as a mutual "this isn't going to work" after 4 hours. Smoking meth in the bathroom. I think she kinda fired herself. She didn't show up at all in an actual work capacity. Her first non-training shift was opening on a Saturday. This place opened at 5:30 AM. So me, excited to sleep in because I opened MF, which was waking up at 3 AM to make it, got woken up at 5:30 on the dot because obviously clients called immediately. Whatever. Maybe something happened. It sucked for me and the people trying to get in early morning workouts, but I made it there and had it covered. The problem was when I tried to talk to her about it. She didn't even let me get started. She immediately started yelling at me that I didn't give her enough space for her personal issues or something like that. And then she emailed the VP of the company about how awful I was. I wouldn't have fired her for that. I tried to talk to her about it to find out why it happened. But I had no chance at all. She just went all out scorched earth. All she got was being fired from a person above me.
Hi there. Look, if you enjoyed the video, well, why not go ahead and hit that like and subscribe to Reddit Stories. In fact, if you want to see even more responses to this thread, well then, take a look. There's the link in the description below. And remember, show some love to those authors while you're there. And I look forward to seeing you next time.